In our species' history, mixed martial arts is legalized brutality with a tremendous artistic flair. With volatile characters and a chaotic environment, there are bound to be some moments that nobody planned on seeing breaking out at MMA events. That's kind of a huge part of the sport's appeal. Here are 10 unexpected MMA moments caught on camera. Before we can get into the fun stuff, we have a favor to ask you. Later on in our video, we're going to be giving a quiz, okay? We may be doing a little list of unexpected moments, but we don't want you guys and gals to be caught off guard by this at all. Also, don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can get more videos from the most entertaining sports channel on YouTube. Chemo enters. Royce Gracie is the first hero of the MMA. He's a small man who, in spite of size, took down opponents way above his weight class. While he would go on to have legendary rivalries with Ken Shamrock and Sakuraba, his most physically imposing opponent has to be Kimmo Leopoldo from UFC 3. A mammoth of a human being, the massive Kimmo stood out as a character even by the standards of 1990s UFC. This was seen in the very first match as he entered the octagon with a, wait for it, gigantic cross. Yeah, apparently Jesus had been clocking in some hours in the gym because this was indeed him coming back from the dead to kick some butt. Okay, fine, maybe it was just a gimmick gone too far, but if we're going to be outlandish, why not take it all the way? If that wasn't unexpected enough, the ensuing fight was also quite the spectacle. While Gracie has taken on larger men in his previous 2 UFC tournaments, he handled them with relative ease. Leopoldo, however, ragdolled the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master for about 5 minutes before he fell victim to an armbar. Everything about Leopoldo's first appearance was jaw-dropping. Unfortunately, he could never replicate the excitement his first fight drew, but it will go down as an unexpected moment nonetheless. Kimbo goes down. A beloved character and fun personality in the world of MMA, Kimbo Slice was immensely popular at his peak. Star and winner of several street fight videos, some thought that Slice could make a career in MMA. Okay, so the idea of Kimbo Slice being a fearsome MMA fighter may seem laughable if you knew anything about the sport, but the fact remains, at one point in time, Slice was viewed by many casual fans to be a real threat to the UFC heavyweight division. That all went up in flames extremely quickly with a simple flick of an arm. The night it all came crashing down for Slice was October 4th, 2008. That night, Slice was supposed to face off against the immensely washed up Ken Shamrock. Unfortunately for those wanting to see a legend get his brains bashed in, Shamrock suffered a cut while warming up and had to pull out. The unknown Seth Pretzorzelli was plucked off the undercard and chosen as the replacement. The light heavyweight was given up quite a few pounds against Slice, but it didn't matter. With a jab thrown off one leg, Seth dropped Slice seconds into the fight and pounded him out for the TKO win. With a few strikes, all of Slice's hype dissipated, and fans remembered that MMA fighting and street fighting is indeed not the same thing. Raging loser. Look, nobody likes losing a fight. Whether you're arguing online with a Twitter egg or losing the inner struggle to not eat that ice cream in the freezer, it sucks to lose. If we can just offer some advice to you, dear viewers, do not, under any circumstances, blindly punch what you may think is the air when you lose. Unfortunately, for one poor ring card girl, MMA fighter Andrew Whitney did not hear our advice from the future. Right after losing a decision to the Titan FC promotion, Andrew was feeling mad. He just had to hit something, anything. Too bad, the thing which happened to be in his path was an innocent ring card girl. Yep, Whitney clocked her right in the face. While the incident looks bad, thankfully she ended up being just fine. In fact, the CEO of Titan FC said that she was more surprised than anything. We're assuming that being socked in the jaw was not in her contract description. It could have been much worse though. Whitney is a bantamweight. Could you have imagined if it was a heavyweight? Nameless ring card girl, count your lucky stars. Brown shorts? Poor Tim Sylvia, one of the more despised UFC champions in the history of the promotion. Sylvia was an awkward, fumbling mess who failed to win over fans. Audiences were quite pleased when Sylvia lost his heavyweight championship to beloved UFC Hall of Famer Randy Couture back in 2007. If Sylvia's poor public personality wasn't bad enough, he was dealt another unfortunate incident which he would never live down. At UFC Fight Night 3, the Maniac and Sylvia wonders why people find him so cringy. Anyway, on the card, Sylvia fought in the main event against the unknown Osorio Sylvia. While the former champion won the match, he certainly didn't win himself any dignity. If you look at the fight closely, you will see that Sylvia has a brown spot on his underwear. It's exactly what you think it is. Sylvia says that he was sick the day of the fight and couldn't keep the mud inside his intestines while fighting. As much as Sylvia gets crapped on from fans, we think we have to give him a pass on this one. Fighting inside the UFC is hard enough. We can't imagine what it's like to fight while having the runs. Nashville Brawl. This is not exactly what people had in mind when they tuned into CBS to watch MMA. Strikeforce Nashville signaled a changing of the guard in MMA. The young up-and-comer Jake Shields pulled off the upset by out-grappling and out-muscling Olympic wrestler Dan Henderson. That victory alone was shocking enough, but what happened after the fact was even crazier. As Shields was relishing in his victory, the crazy man known as Jason Mayhem Miller entered the cage. So let's analyze this situation. We have a wild man who's been caught sleeping naked in a church and the Diaz brothers. We'd be here all day if we had to catalog all the incidences involving Nate and Nick Diaz, but long story short, they are something out of a movie. Combine these combustible elements in a high-stress situation and blammo! We have the massive melee in the middle of the cage on live TV. The interviewer tried to remind them that they were on national television, but it didn't help. The situation eventually boiled over, but it remains one of the more infamous moments in MMA history. CBS, just do what Will Ferrell did in Semi-Pro and cut to commercials so they can fight. Come on now. Get your pencils out. It's time for our quiz question. In the early days of the UFC, things like unified gear was a silly myth. Fighters could have worn whatever they wanted. So what UFC fighter once infamously competed with a boxing glove? Stay tuned for the answer. Premature celebration. MMA is like a box of chocolates. They're both sweet and cruel. Wait, no, that's not. Oh, that's right. You never know what you're going to get. This goes double for the wild man from Minas Gerais, Brazil, known as Rosemar Palhares, also known by his nickname Chacrito, which means little tree stump in Portuguese. Palhares is as skilled as he is insane. He regularly holds on to submission holds long after his opponents have tapped out, and in general is a bizarre figure in the MMA. The fact that the submission hold he hangs onto are leg locks, the most dangerous submissions in grappling, turns him from goofy to dangerous. We realize that it might be silly to critique a sport based on beating one another up as dangerous, but rules are still rules, okay? Thankfully though, this moment from UFC 134 is more hilarious than anything. Facing off against Dan Miller, Palhares dropped his foe with a solid punch and pounced with ground and pound. Then, out of nowhere, Palhares stopped and started celebrating his apparent victory. See, there's a slight problem though. He didn't actually win. The referee did not stop the fight. He had to pull Palhares off the octagon ring, and everyone was left super confused. Luckily for Palhares, he would win the decision anyway, but this was still an odd moment from the UFC's return to Brazil. Paul Daly's cheap shot. Listen, we have no love lost for Josh Koscheck here at the Sportster. At nearly every conceivable chance, Koscheck has shown himself to be a complete jerk, and not even a smart one at that. After all, he did once claim he was going to motorboat GSP's ass on The Ultimate Fighter. What does that even mean, Josh? Amazingly though, we still have to have some sympathy for our welterweight here. At UFC 113, Josh took on English knockout artist Paul Daly with a shot at the championship on the line. Daly's wrestling defense, however, wasn't up to snuff, and Josh took him down with ease for 3 rounds, winning the fight. Already miffed at Koscheck's pre-fight trash-talking, Daly had enough and threw a punch at Koscheck well after the fight had ended. He did land it, but Koscheck was unfazed by it and walked off. Things got worse for Daly after the fight. He would immediately be fired by Dana White for his unprofessional conduct. White also said that Daly would never be allowed back in the company. The UFC president backtracks a lot on his statements, but as of right now, Semtex has yet to return.